And we are on. Zane,
Oh,
floor is yours.
Live.
We are
Awesome.
live.
Good afternoon to everyone for connecting from wherever you are. Welcome to the regular Wise Guys panels about topics that we feel are valuable to be discussed. And today we have a pretty awesome panel calling in from all over Baltics and also I assume from London to talk about how Brexit has impacted and what opportunities and challenges it has brought to, I guess anyone, but specifically today we're going to be focusing on the Baltic founders. And just for the reference, this panel is sparked partially by the Baltic Startup Scene report that we published together with EIT Digital and also a good partner of ours, UK Department of International Trade. Interestingly, London has always been one of the kind of core preferred places to go and to where to expand for the Baltic startups, especially if you look at fintech. I guess that's a no-brainer. And will be interesting to hear from Liudas today also how he sees this and is there any change. And I would say that probably last year was shaky and this year shaky, not only in terms of health risks, but also what was happening in terms of Brexit finally kind of fully taken place. And so today we're going to have kind of forts from both sides, I would say. And we're joined today by three awesome founders from the Wise Guys portfolio, representing each of the Baltic countries, and all of them have an UK connection. So I'll be very, very happy to hear from Martin, from Liudas, and from Sigvards, how this time and the transition time has been for you, and also how do you see the future and what is the reality, right? How do you actually work with the market that is changing, and what would be maybe some advice also to other founders considering UK as their target market. And also today we're joined by Chris Moore from UK Department of International Trade. Very welcome here, Chris. And it's amazing to have somebody on the ground and actually hear about how things are really looking from the inside, and also probably find out things that we actually don't know or that we might not have heard on our side. So I have introduced you already a little bit, but I would like to open this panel with some super quick intros. I will start, Chris, with you. You could give us a little bit of insight of where you're at right now. What do you do? What do you do at DIT? And also kind of maybe just a super quick insights on how do you see the situation and the change.
Sure. Thanks, Anne. It's a real pleasure to be here talking to companies in the Baltics. And I'm a technology specialist working for the Department for International Trade. So in that role, I support companies that are looking either to set up in the UK for the first time, or if they're already here, to help them grow and expand. I cover right across the tech spectrum. So I talk to companies in areas like AI and data science, but also enterprise, cloud, IoT, cyber. So right across the spectrum. So in terms of, what's happening now? So I'm based actually in Cambridge rather than London. So I'm very close to a very strong tech community. And you might have said, well, surely everything's slowed down. People have stopped doing business. They're just hiding away in their homes. No. In fact, I would say that because of COVID in particular, there has been a whole series of new opportunities. Now, there are the obvious ones like I need to move my whole business online. Therefore, I need expertise in UX, UI. I need somebody to help me with payments. I need really good, stable cloud infrastructure. But also, there have been other opportunities in areas more broadly in fintech, but in education, in healthcare. And I think also many more companies are a lot more aware of their data and therefore the opportunities of being able to do things with their data. So from that point of view, higher demand for quite a range of things. And because everybody is working remotely, you could be working in Tallinn or you could be working in London, but you could still be working to serve customers in the UK. So, and for that matter, other markets. So I would say the demand for certain of those areas is really going up. And I think there are lots of mechanisms for companies still to continue to do business. But I'll come back to some of that stuff later in the session.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chris, for that. And it's great to hear that you're also close to the tech and the insights are really hands-on. And who knows, maybe even for the founders here on the panel today, you're a good contact to have on the ground. Awesome. I will continue with the intros of the founders. And we have gathered you here because we know that you have some UK connection. But I would love to hear from you. Super quick one-liner pitch of what the company does, but also if you could give a bit of an insight why the choice of UK market for expansion, how long you have been in the market, and yeah, are you there where you're calling in from? And I would love to start with Martin from Fractory.
Hi everyone, and thanks for inviting me. Good to be back with the Wise Guys family, and it's now been more than 3 years since we parted from our batch together with Sigvards. Fractory is an online cloud manufacturing platform. What that means is we operate in the traditional manufacturing space, and we help the outsourcing problem, help to solve it. What it means is that engineering companies, they need custom parts to be manufactured, and we contact different suppliers to receive them, and it's a whole manual process to do so. That's why we built this guy. It's called RAM, Robot Account Manager. What he does is he takes the information from one side and the other side, puts it together and creates a perfect match. So they can only both the customer and suppliers, they only have to interact with the system. We have 2 offices. One of them is in Tartu, Estonia, and the other one, we went a different route. We didn't go to London. We went to Manchester. And the reason for that is most of the traditional manufacturing is centered around the Northwest and Midlands area. And Manchester being one of the best connected cities in that region, it was kind of an obvious choice for us. And first tip from me, while going into UK, Manchester is half the price of London in everything.
And right now you're calling in from where?
At the moment, I'm in Tartu, and I said this before we went live, but I was living in UK in Manchester before COVID situation. But on 15th of March, I came back to Tartu, and our office has been working remotely since then. In a way, it has been challenging. We had to learn a lot of new things, but at the same time, it has made us definitely a bit more flexible, and is not constricting us to hiring just around Manchester area, but actually broader.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro. So Martin from Estonia, from Tartu. I always love it. Tartu is an amazing place. We have some really kick-ass founders from there, and great to have you here. Well, let's gonna go geographically, right? We're gonna go to Latvia, and I'm looking at Sigvards. Fun fact: when he called in, I thought that we have a different person calling in. Clearly, lockdowns have really changed our appearances. But great to have you here, and yeah, a little bit of your background. So what Casprin does, how long you have been in UK, and where you're calling in from.
Yeah, hey everyone. So I'm Sigvards, the hairy guy, one of the founders of Casprin. So what we basically print these beautiful things called cast prints, which are 3D printed, custom-made casts you can use instead of the traditional plaster casts when you have an injured bone or fractured bone and so on. So this is what we do basically in essence, and we have 2 offices. Also, one in Riga and the other one in UK, in London. And so we have a subsidiary here, and I'm calling here from Latvia, from Riga. And the last time I was in London was 2020, in I think just about before Valentine's Day. So roughly actually a year ago, I was last time in London. But yeah, so it has been as well tough for us. I mean, we basically had to as well leave the office space, so go fully remote. And I was actually staying before that for 6 months in UK, in London in particular, to set up the operations. And my first advice is that have your customers before you actually start going there. So have ready, thus actually it's much more easier. Otherwise, like expenses, particularly in London, could go very sky high.
Thanks for already being hands-on and practical, and that's always great to add value to the listeners. Last but not least, we have Liudas here from Ondato, and if I understand, if rumors are correct, you were about to basically move fully the business, or you have moved the business to UK just recently. Is that correct? And let us know what Ondato and you do.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so my name is Liudas. I'm calling from Vilnius, Lithuania. Although we moved our headquarters to London, UK, just before the Brexit, and kind of the last month actually of the last year. But yeah, so for us, moving to London is more or less something organic thing, I would call that. And movement itself, because we are working in the compliance field, and our target customers are the financial institutions, since we are building the Know Your Customer data management platform, from the customer onboarding to data validation and monitoring. And for us, being in the fintech capital and in the financial institution capital is the important thing. So it's very, I wouldn't call that something very special. Of course, the Brexit maybe impacted, let's say, the way of thinking of the movement, but everything rest, I believe, stays the same anyway.
Thanks for the intro. So we have everyone covered, and if somebody doesn't know me yet, then I am Zane. I'm the head of marketing here at Startup Wise Guys, and also one of the people behind the Baltic report that I mentioned. And in the background, we have Louise doing some magic with this panel. I wanted to also remind, before we go full blown into the conversation here, dear viewers, you have the possibility to impact what we ask the speakers, and also get your opinion heard. You can use the comments section of all places where this is streamed, so be it YouTube, be it Facebook or LinkedIn, and we will kind of include your comments in the discussion. We will probably not have a separate Q&A, so just keep them dropping, and we will just be answering as the time goes. Okay, without further ado, I will actually look at Chris first, and I would say that before this panel, I was also, like frantically Googling all the things that I could find. What should I know? And there's so many articles about impact of Brexit on startups, what startup founders should be thinking about, and things from costs to paperwork, from hiring others from EU, and challenges to actually of moving around and things like that. And of course, on top of Brexit, we also have pandemic with the lockdown and health risks and travel restrictions. But I will park all of that, and as you are there hands-on this, could you let us know kind of what would be your emphasis, or what would you say, okay, for any startup out there thinking about UK right now and considering, what maybe are some myths you want to bust and say, hey, it's totally not true, and what maybe are some objective challenges that were not there before?
Right. So I think picking up on the last point that was mentioned about financial capital, London still is the fintech capital of Europe. And there was a rumor that said, well, so many companies are going to leave the UK and they'll go and set up in, I don't know, the Netherlands or in Frankfurt or somewhere. That hasn't happened. What we have seen is sometimes the larger companies, they've had another office somewhere else where they've used for specific reasons. But generally, the vast majority of those larger companies have retained all of their operations in the UK. Some have even grown, and some, I think, have continued to invest more in the UK, either to access the talent. Maybe they need data scientists, or they need AI specialists, or they need software developers, and all of that you can find. I think also the COVID background has been much more significant for companies than the Brexit part. Of course, we talk about free movement of labor and a different visa system and all of those things you have to think about. But already for entrepreneurs, there have been really good visa categories that have been designed to help them fast track processes. And of course, once you've got all of that in place, that everything else is more straightforward. The other things about setting up in the UK have not really changed either. So we just talked about KYC. So setting up a bank account is something you need to pay attention to. But I would say that if companies are are still thinking about the UK and they want technical answers about some of those questions. We have teams sitting in all three markets, but particularly Tina Marie Araja, who is based in Tallinn, can be a focal point for you if you've got questions about the UK in general. But otherwise, I think coming back to the pluses and minuses of the fact that the UK has left the EU, well, one of the plus points is that we can make our own rules now. So we are signing lots and lots of trade agreements with key markets around the world, and every week there seems to be a new one. But in any case, the fact that this will make doing business using the UK as a base for many of those international markets, like Japan, for instance, or Canada, will be much easier than perhaps it might have been before. And I think the other piece to remember about the UK is that it is still a very vibrant market. And so the fact that these larger companies have not disappeared, the fact that there's even more emphasis now on technology, and we heard some great examples earlier. And also, just to pick up on that last point about Manchester, I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of my key selling points is please come to the UK. London might be a good option for you, particularly if you focus on financial services. But otherwise, there are many great clusters. And Manchester is the fastest growing tech cluster in the country. But you can be there, you can operate at a fraction of the cost. And if you don't follow Manchester United or Manchester City, don't worry. You can go to other cities, and there are places like Leeds and Birmingham, which are good. And if you have specific interests in other areas like cybersecurity or data science, then you might look at cities like Edinburgh or Belfast. And again, our colleagues in DIT in the Baltics can provide advice on that. And certainly, I'm very happy to talk to any of the companies that are participating in this call at a future point. And I'll stop there.
Awesome. So we also got almost a geography lesson. And as somebody who has studied my Erasmus in Scotland, I was particularly happy to have Edinburgh mentioned in the list.
Cool.
I still wanted to challenge you, Chris, a little bit on this. How do you think how much of that is how much of the real effect we will actually maybe see in the future? It's been a long divorce, right? So and yes. I think at some point people probably were like, are we still married or not? What's going on, right? But maybe what is your longer term perspective? How much of that might still, what are the ripple effects we might still see?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Zane. And I think there will be some ripple effects because we haven't signed a trade agreement with the US yet. That's still an open question. And we're feeling our way with a lot of the regulations and the legislative environment in terms of doing business with the rest of the European Union. Nevertheless, I think that will all drop into place over time. And again, I come back to the free movement of labour has some plus points as well in a slightly less expected way. So I talked about specific visa categories to help entrepreneurs, but also if you're trying to bring in talent to work in your UK company and you're trying to bring in that talent from, I don't know, the US or India or somewhere, then it's a level playing field. So it will be as easy to bring people in from some of those other markets as it will be from the rest of the EU. But inevitably, we have to be careful and we have to wait and see how some of these things develop. So I'm not saying that we've got every single answer in place, but I think we're in good shape. And I think over the next 6 months in particular, a lot of these other trade agreements will fall into place. We're doing negotiations now on some that cover the Pacific Rim and also Latin America. So I think that's another plus point about the UK, using it as the springboard to access other markets that might be more difficult to access directly from the Baltics.
That's an interesting perspective that you touched upon. So it's like almost losing a little bit on the euro, but gaining on the world is how you see the new rules that you can make yourself. Is that right?
Yes, I think so. I mean, the free trade agreements are an important component of this, and they're going to be negotiated differently for each region of the world. And there've been a lot already put in place, but this will continue. And I think it will give us some opportunities to deal much more easily with some markets around the world. So markets like Japan, for instance, which, I think for a lot of companies, Japan is a tough market to break into. But I think having a good free trade agreement will help companies that are operating from the UK to access markets like that.
Yeah.
Can I jump in here?
Go, Martin, go.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to ask Chris some further maybe insight that maybe isn't readily available, but or understandable to many of us. What gives the UK the confidence that they can strike better deals with, say, US or Japan or wherever else? So better deals than EU had recently. So basically, what I'm asking is. Maybe what are the topics of entrepreneurship that makes coming into UK or starting from UK a better place, or basing some of the operations in UK rather than EU?
So I think the existing relationship that we have with some of those markets. So I mean, classically markets like the US, Canada, Australia, but also other Asian markets like India. I think there's a lot of history. So there's a lot of already bilateral agreements between those markets. Beyond that, I think because the negotiations have been around two countries operating together, or in some instances, it's a smaller group of markets like the one Mercosur, which is in Latin America. This means that trying to agree on a number of points may be easier when you have two parties rather than, more than 20 parties. However, we'll have to see how that goes, and I think we will see an evolution of this. But I think the fact that UK companies are already doing business in many of these markets today, I think the free trade agreements layered on top of that will make life a lot easier for some of these companies. And we still see many companies from the rest of Europe to come to the UK and to grow in the UK to then tackle other markets. So the classic example here is French companies that say, well, we actually want to come to the UK. We'll get our case history in the English language with the UK customers, and then we'll tackle North America. And that's not an uncommon model.
This is something that we are looking forward to as well. Like when all the dust is settled, I guess we'll know for sure what's going to happen. But we currently operate, so the Estonian office and the manufacturing network we have in Baltics and Nordics is basically delivering to most of the EU. But at the same time, from UK, we are delivering to US, and we're hoping that that gets even easier and faster, and hopefully a bit cheaper for the end customer as well. So we can actually use the British manufacturing, which is actually much cheaper than the US manufacturing. So the total sum of the whatever the customer needs is actually cheaper this way than delivering from within US or Europe.
Yes, Martin, you've just done my publicity for me. That was absolutely great. That's what I would have said. It facilitates the kind of cheaper manufacturer and the just cheaper doing business between the markets where we've already signed a free trade agreement. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for jumping in on this, and definitely let's keep the conversation flow. I see that we also have some comments coming in. Hello, Alex, Julia, Justina, watching us, and others. I wanted to actually drop one of the questions already on the floor here. That's coming from Justine, and she's asking about tax issues. And I actually wanted to kind of forward this towards the founders and say, have you been experiencing any kind of challenges related to tax, or maybe what have been other things that you kind of, I don't know, expected to be easier or that has been challenging for you establishing the business in UK, or recently dealing with taxes or something else? Is there anybody who wants to raise your hand and go?
Well, we have been delivering from Europe to UK, especially raw material, because there was a sort of combination of Brexit and COVID that basically wrecked the raw material market in UK for a few months. Because of COVID, the steel mills were shut down for a period of time, and getting them back up when the demand was starting to rise took some time. That meant that raw material basically ended. Nobody had it, the most regular stuff on the shelves, so we imported some in for bigger projects. and there were definitely some learning curves to be tackled, and some things to make sure that everything goes smoothly. But at the same time, thanks to this sort of situation, it was an opportunity for us to get the job that and offer a solution actually to the customer, because they were unable to get it anywhere else. But definitely, tax is something that that can affect a lot of the services and the products. But I think it all depends on what exactly are you buying or selling, because it depends on the product. It depends on the material itself, and so on, and where is the actual origin of the product. So there's already, I think it's in June this year, that when you're selling a British-made, a British origin, sorry, UK originating product to EU, then there is no double taxation. So that will disappear. Yes, there will be a half year of time to everyone getting settled and used to the situation. But I think that part of like VAT, for example, that will be figured out. Yes, there might be some differentiating factors depending on where the product actually originates and what's the purpose of the product. But for most of the stuff, I don't think that will be a problem. It's just some adjustment, and it will continue relatively same way like it used to.
Thanks, Martin. Liudas, Sigvards, anything from your side on this? Liudas, I see you unmuting.
Yeah, so it's always some unclarity when something's changing. Yeah? So with the tax issues, there's still some unclarity left, and that's for sure. But I can give you another example that actually was really like funny for myself, at least this Monday. Because last week we sent just the computer to ourselves, actually, yeah, so to our office in London from here, and we had to pay import tax on it, and that's that's something. It is a small fee anyway, and we didn't want to then making those all the complaints and all the stuff that maybe it shouldn't be applied because it's just our computer sent to ourselves and all the stuff. But these kind of things, of course, they don't help at this moment, I believe, and there's still some things to improve on from that perspective, and especially with the regulatory part, with the tax issues and all the stuff with the double taxation and everything. So there's still quite a lot of things. But it's I believe that it's a normal process when such a big changes are coming anyway.
Thanks, Liudas. Sigvards, your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with both Martin and Liudas regarding this, and our experience. Okay, so maybe we were in a way lucky or unlucky that during COVID, so last year, most of our operations we need to actually be on pause. So we actually haven't experienced yet any issues when now starting out back in January when we are having our first orders. But speaking out with our suppliers about, let's say, materials and that sort of stuff, the good news is there's a lot of already suppliers in the UK. So in terms of logistics and that kind of issues, we do not expect any issues in terms of and significant changes, let's put it that way. But in terms of taxation, yeah, I would assume, again, it will be some issues, definitely. But again, we're entrepreneurs, right? So it's like expected that some challenges will be, and we just have to work with it.
I think you're all proving one point that we found in Baltic Startup Scene Report survey, that founders generally are dealing better with crisis simply because they are more ready to embrace it, right? I saw you, Chris, you were waving quite a lot to what the guys were saying, and I'm sure you have some comments or suggestions on how to tackle these things or what to expect. Go.
So first of all, I'm reassured by the comments from the guys, because I think that you've had some good experiences, but you're very realistic about things. In terms of the logistics, we have seen some issues with some logistics, but it's been more for food, for fast-moving consumer goods, which you might expect. And part of that is also related to COVID issues, and trying to split out what's due to COVID versus what is due to EU exit issues. It's difficult sometimes, but I think in generally, like was mentioned, that the UK is very well served for a lot of the basics when it comes to logistics, and things move around quite rapidly. So in talking to the companies that I've engaged with over the last few months, I haven't heard any companies that really raised that as an issue. They have talked about kind of concerns about whether they would be able to source things in the UK, and then have discovered when they've done the homework that actually it's not as difficult as they had first thought. So I think a lot of that will settle down. And I think the final point to say is that of course, many people will be working on digitally based products and services, in which case the logistics is a very different scenario, and transferring digital content is much easier than it is when you have to put stuff in boxes and put it in ships or on trucks. So I think from that point of view, tech companies are in a better position than some others.
I see Martin kind of smiling in the background of packing things and shipping them. Yes. Yes. Thanks, Chris. And maybe anything else on the tax kind of changes in near future? Martin was already touching upon some of the things that are subject to change. Maybe just shed a bit of light on what to expect.
So I was going to talk about some other tax things that might be relevant to entrepreneurs. UK has a good reputation for supporting technology companies. So just a reminder that UK has one of the lowest rates of corporation tax in Europe. I don't see that that's going to change much in the immediate future. Secondly, when it comes to companies that are developing technology, they're doing R&D. There is a R&D tax credit that is still available. So for every £1 you spend on tech development R&D, you can put £2.3 against your corporate tax liability. There's a similar tax break called Patent Box, which is for entrepreneurs that want to protect their intellectual property in the form of a patent. So if you do that in the UK, and the revenue that comes back to the UK operation, it's not taxed at 19%, so corporation tax level, but about half that, so around 10%. And the final one, we haven't talked about funding at all as yet, but this is a key topic for entrepreneurs. And there is a big tax incentive for investors to invest in early stage companies in the UK. And that includes companies that would come from the Baltics to set up in the UK. And those tax incentives are somewhere between 30 to 50% of the investment that the investor makes. So it's not a tax break for the company, it's a tax break for their investor, but it encourages investors to invest in early stage companies. And those tax breaks are called the seed and enterprise investment schemes.
Thanks for this. Just to clarify, these investors are considered like private investors, like business angels, or that is kind of more kind of like wider spread?
Yeah, it's wider. So it could be business angels, it could be venture capitalists, it could be corporates or some other form of investor, but they're all able to access those tax breaks for investment in early stage companies. There are some rules. It's probably not appropriate to go through all of that, but generally, one of the first questions that an investor will ask of an early stage company is, are you compatible or eligible for SEIS or EIS tax breaks? In which case the answer is generally going to be yes. It's to do with how long have you been in business, how big your company is. It's those kinds of basics, but it's certainly a big incentive to drive investment from VCs and business angels. And just to add, we talked about, well, was 2020 a rubbish year, or did investments still stand up? Well, still last year, the UK saw more investment from VCs and similar sources than any other market in Europe, so at around $15 billion. And that's about the same as Germany and France put together. So it's still very, very strong in terms of an investment market.
Thanks for clarifying this, and I guess that there's some similarities as in the Baltics. We also noticed that actually it's not like the investment scene would also kind of be on pause, and there has been a lot of activity actually, and also in our case at Startup Wise Guys, we had one of the best years ever, and actually at the beginning of 2020, we're even listed among top 50 most active investors in the whole world by Crunchbase. So
Wow.
I think in an onset of a pandemic, and I think that's kind of like a big thing, and but we were very we actually saw that the market maybe kind of had a little bit of pause and breathing time around April and May, but afterwards I think the things really caught up. And for example, in November, I think it was kind of like an epic month in the Baltics with Pipedrive becoming a unicorn. Latvians had, I think, the biggest deals in the whole year, kind of all in Q4. I actually was given the topic about funding, I was not planning to touch it that much, but I think that's definitely a very important topic to the listeners. I wanted to ask the founders, have you seen the benefit of what Chris mentioned, and how maybe has the funding journey been? Have you been fundraising at all once entering the UK market? Martin, you are already unmuted, so I could ask you to start first.
Yeah, we kind of were the most unfortunate ones because we had everything mapped out to a dot, which meant that our fundraising started in the middle of March, and exactly at the wrong time. So we ended up doing an internal round. But before starting fundraising, and we had agreed and sort of internally prepared ourselves that if necessary, we could. At the moment, our parent company is the Estonian company, and we have a subsidiary in UK. But we could potentially do a switch. And if there are outside investors, say UK investors or US investors, who see that this would largely benefit them, then well, depending on what exactly and who exactly is the investor, but yes, we are aware of that, and I think it's a good opportunity. And I know a lot of people say and founders say that, well, they kind of want to keep their roots and keep the headquarters in wherever they're from. I don't think that has to change. You can effectively still manage the headquarters being in wherever you like it to be, and having a company there will still put tax into your home country. So that on paper your headquarters is in UK. That doesn't matter that where you actually and how you actually operate. So, but that is a good point, that UK in that sense is one of the more sort of welcoming environments for investors.
Thanks for this, and I hope the next round will be more lucky. I can totally relate to, not on a scale of your challenge, but I was laughing that I finally put together a full tech events list in February last year, and then March happened, and I'm like, great, thank you, tech events of the world. Liudas, Sigvards, how in your case related to the experience with the funding? Sigvards, Liudas, Liudas, you go.
Yeah, so I can a bit of comment on that. So we fundraised actually last year by the end of the year. It was not dedicated for like UK only or something. Of course, to be honest, at this moment, let's say today, I don't see a big problem for Baltic startup to fundraise and to raise money, because we really already have some success stories and what to share, and it's not such a big difference that it was before, let's say. On the other hand, the tax regime itself, the shareholding structure possibilities and everything that UK gives is anyway better than still we have here within the Baltics. Yeah, so and we have to understand that. And the other thing is, of course, that depends on the plans of the company itself. Again, related with the further expansion plans to the rest of the world, to again US, Japan, and other regions. And if the company has these kind of plans, so of course then UK could be a really good way and good basically opportunity then to choose as the primary location and to fundraise as well, because of the connections and all the rest of the things. So that really depends on the targets that the company has at the moment. But if talking about some kind of blocking or something that it would be like affecting from the bad perspective, I would really not say so. If there are really good things about being in UK and fundraising than in UK.
Thanks, Sigvards. Your experience?
Yeah, our experience. So we will actually be raising this year. So fingers crossed and see how it goes. But yeah, so so actually before COVID, so in 2019, so I actually had this experience already talking with business angels. I had actually a roadshow on the Isles, so in Guernsey and Isle of Man, and there actually. And so this is actually where the business angels and these groups of business angels, so they were actually already talking about this scheme, and we understood that if we will be, let's say, angel or different kind of investors for the UK, then definitely we will have to do a flip. That basically the HQ is in UK, and a subsidiary is, even though on paper, right, but still it will be a subsidiary back home in Latvia. However, again, as from our experience in terms of setting up the operation, so for example, I saw that there was a comment regarding the setting up a subsidiary. So my suggestion is, again, the basics was that you have to understand where are your customers, and actually if you know your customers beforehand, and then it becomes much more easier, because if you have like paying clients, then you can already go to set up a bank account, go to a company house. I mean, setting up a company is like a couple of days, even sooner. So it's very easy, right? So from that perspective, no issues. But I mean, yeah, it depends on, again, I guess, on the business. So we're in healthcare, and healthcare is a hot topic these days. So, so in that sense, we're in a good industry, and we hope to expect good things this year.
Fingers crossed, and I don't think you can be as unlucky as Martin. I'm so sorry, but you were lucky. You raised the round anyway, right? And then really fingers crossed for things to be more stable in the future. I saw Julia Gifford is also asking us some questions. Chris already touched a bit on the logistics, but I wanted to ask the second part of the question, and I think it's very related both to subsidiary and what you already mentioned about the challenge. Where's the headquarters? How do you run the business? And also for you being right now based in the Baltics, while you still have a team working in UK, I assume, for most of you. So are there new challenges when it comes to running a business in both the Baltics and the UK, such as financial requirements, documents? But I definitely would be loving to hear also on the team and the human side.
So let me just try and answer some of those points. First of all, I don't think there are any really difficult, significant issues now, because if you think about it, we've had companies from other parts of the world that have been doing this for a long time. So companies from the US, from Canada, even from places like Israel, where they've done exactly that. They've kind of done the flip of the HQ if necessary. So that's a very classical Israeli model to do that as well. So they keep the main group of activity, so the main team in the home country, and they have a presence in the UK, which they use for as the HQ and then for fundraising. But in terms of running, whether it's a subsidiary or whether you want to flip the HQ or you want to branch, whatever is the right model, we would recommend talking to either a law firm or accountancy firm or whatever is appropriate. And again, I come back to our colleagues who are based in the embassies in the region. They are best placed to give you detailed advice about your own personal circumstances. But in general terms, no, I don't think it's become any more difficult. You have to follow the rules, of course. You have to be aware of differences in documentation and tax. But a lot of what's required now is still going to be very, very similar to what was required when the UK was in the EU in terms of the way that our processes are working. So, and the UK is a very simple, straightforward place to do business. I'm not sure where in the index it is, but it's pretty near the top in terms of ease of business. And as was said, setting up a company in the UK, Companies House, just a couple of days. The bank account, again, you have to think a bit more carefully about that. But again, if you have got business customers already in the UK, it is easier. And again, we can connect you to a banking specialist who can help with the nuts and bolts of setting up a bank account in the UK.
I would like to add some salt here, actually, Chris. What is the real challenge for any Baltic founder? I believe that it's the same for Lithuania, Latvia, or Estonia, is actually the pricing of all the services, and it's for sure. You have to use the auditors, you have to use the legals and all the stuff. But the biggest challenge is to understand that this quote on the pricing that you get from any UK proper firm is not a phone number or something, but it's the real amount that they want to have that for the consultation. So that I would call as a real challenge to change our mindset and to understand that this is the real cost. I don't know what is the experience from others, but for me, that was a few years ago, but that for sure was the challenge as well.
Yeah, for us, we did. I don't actually remember anymore that well, but it wasn't definitely something like too much. It was surprising that actually the complexity was surprising. Otherwise, we would have done everything on our own, and we did a lot on our own. And that's probably it wasn't too expensive, except for the time it took us to get everything done. Because yes, setting up a company that we got done in a matter of days, but the bank account took us 5 months because we went to all the wrong places in the beginning, and at one point. Getting help definitely makes sense. But coming back to maybe the original question, and I think Chris went through all the technical side, but the team side. I've always been more in favor of working in one place as much as possible because. Of course, it depends on the company and what type of a product are you selling and what type of a product are you building. But the more complex the company is and what it does, and the more moving parts it has, the more it will benefit from different departments and internal as well in departments for people to spend time together because you don't learn from others by just observing if you can't see them, right? And that's also not thinkable that you have your camera on all the time. So that part is definitely still a challenge, and I'm very much looking forward to getting back to the office. But especially in the UK, where our team is growing relatively fast at the moment, we have half of the team, so roughly 14 people in total, and half of them have never seen each other in person. So those relationships and learnings that they are very important but at the same time it has made us much more flexible. Maybe that's not only due to Brexit, of course, but being able to remotely hire will teach us to go to new markets. So as Sigvard says, don't go to a new market if you don't have clients there. And the same thing can apply to maybe you don't have to go to a new market until the business is up and running because you're able to hire the right people there. And that's sort of something that you can already try out with UK, because if you're coming from Baltics, then you probably everybody knows English, but all the other languages are probably so and so. So going into UK, that was actually one of our. It sounds very silly, but that was an important point. Like, what's the language? Okay, it's English. None of us spoke Russian too well, or French or German. So it's UK, right? And getting to try that out right now and using it to go to new markets, I think is a good way to do it.
The human side is definitely a challenge for everyone. But as I hear, and I actually remember we had a panel also with founders when we were just launching the Baltic report, and I think Mikus from Giraffe 360 was calling in from London at the time, and he actually said that also the borders have kind of disappeared a little bit, and we definitely see the same, and that suddenly the geography kind of doesn't matter that much because things anyway happen online, and it goes into very kind of many aspects. But there's definitely a price to pay for the human interaction. Sigvards, I saw you unmuting. Do you want to continue on this one?
Yeah, actually, the same thing with us, as Martin said, is that where people speak English, so UK, right? So that's where we're going. But actually, to be honest, so another thing is that, and also Chris mentioned regarding a platform. So because, for example, Casper, so we're actually currently looking into the possibility to expanding also to Australia. So this is actually another region, actually Southeast Asia, and this is actually comes from the UK. So our network in the UK, which has historical ties with that region in Southeast Asia, and so in Australia. So obviously, this is another benefit of it. However, naturally, talking about the, let's say, downside, or let's say the challenges, is as well, of course, in terms of team. So we had to let that go, our team. So we had initially one person there, so we had to let it go. But at the same time, what we understood is that during this time, so yeah, the borders have actually disappeared. As you mentioned, so all the work is being done online. At the same time, yeah, I mean, it sometimes is a bit slower because of, let's say, emails back and forth and that sort of, but once you get used to it, I mean, you can plan your, let's say, schedule your work and so far and so on. So again, if you do the right homework for you and so far and so on, I mean, I would say business is as usual, so to speak. The difference is in the planning phase. So if you just change the planning phase in terms of if you have enough, let's say, financial resources, if you're not enough actually human resources in terms of your hours or your colleagues' hours and so far and so on, then you should be just fine. I mean,
Can I just add a couple of very quick comments? First of all, about the Australia thing. So if you are coming to the UK and you're growing your business here and you want to access markets like Australia, again, the whole DIT team in the UK can really help there because as a UK entity, we have a lot of services that support export. And in particular, we could introduce you to the corresponding DIT office in Melbourne or Sydney and help you then engage with customers in that particular market. And we do events and activities across the whole world. So that's certainly the case. That's really what I was going to add there.
Thanks for that. And I see that there's more and more comments dropping in, but I also noticed that Tina Maria is your representative in the Baltics, has joined us. No surprise there. Hi, Tina Maria. And anybody who's asking comments, actually, please make sure to connect with her, as she's probably your best go-to person for any things. And I see that there are some questions related to already very specific checklists of resources for companies wanting to export hardware products and things. We will not be able to cover that right now, but definitely use the opportunity to reach out to the IT representative in the Baltics. I saw there was one question which was very, very specific from Julia Rond to Liudas, actually. But as it is tackling compliance, maybe let's quickly answer that one. So her question is, has there been a rise in the number of companies from UK wanting KYC compliance products, or what other trends have you noticed after Brexit?
Yeah, I see that comment. So from Julia from Entify, I guess. But I think it's a very quick answer, to be honest, because this is happening not after the Brexit, like I don't know, January, February. This is happening when UK announced Brexit. I think Chris mentioned Europe exiting, but actually that was Britain exiting, isn't it? But yeah, but this is about the risk mitigation, actually, and especially with the compliance products and with the data management itself, and having the separated UK's clients list and all this stuff. So it is happening already for 2 years, and I think it will extend. So and it's not only related with the Brexit as such. Of course, still there's uncertainty with the passporting of the licenses and all the stuff. So there's still quite a few questions to answer. But in general, businesses just mitigating the risks, and of course there's more and more. And the financial institutions as well, especially from the UK, they're still opening their subsidiaries in Europe, in mainland Europe, and they have also their own requests on that. But we do understand that everyone tries to keep their infrastructure single and not to split that, just because of Brexit or something.
Cool. That I think brings us to answering almost all of the questions. I see Julian Henwood is pointing out that UK is ahead of Baltics in terms of ease of business. I have seen other rankings where Baltics are totally in front, but I guess we don't need to convince anybody. And there's good things in both places. And as you can hear from the founders, it really depends on where your customers are. You looking for funding in that particular segment? Do you know the languages? And I'm so happy that both of you mentioned the English, because I thought, okay, that would be so lame from me to say that actually the founders from the Baltics are looking for English-speaking markets, but I think it's so true, because Europe is otherwise so scattered culture or language-wise. We have been talking for 55 minutes. I feel that we need to let our audience probably go, but my suggestion would be to use the last 5 to maybe from each of you, maybe there's something you didn't manage to say, or maybe there's some kind of wish for the other founders out there, either tackling some difficulties or being confused about things. So what do you wish to them for this uncertain future? Whoever wants to go first.
I think I'm just going to be the first one to get the simplest thing out of the way. And it doesn't matter Brexit or not, or what country it actually is, but a very general rule of thumb in the beginning that abides well is that you need to go into a market wherever you're going. Like Sigvards is correct in saying that preferably go after you already have clients or contacts that you can start visiting or converting straight away. But as one of the founders, getting that expansion experience firsthand and staying in that market and learning that market is quite crucial. And as you said previously as well, founders are very used to problems. So Brexit and COVID is just another list, just another name in the list. And maybe it even helps you, because the harder it is in the beginning, the easier it is further down the line. So, but yeah, my sort of experience says that at least the first time, go into the market that you're trying to expand to. Later on, maybe you can already delegate, but you need to know when to delegate.
So you have to be on the ground, and you have to kind of get to know it. Liudas?
I will add to this actually what Martin said. So from my perspective, it's always that any change is an opportunity. Yeah. So and to be honest, it doesn't matter if Britain is in Europe or not. And what kind of trade agreements it has or doesn't have, because every barrier is actually an opportunity for us as founders, and if we can just solve it, so it means that we are one step ahead of the others. And I really also would agree that if there is a market for any founder of any company, they just have to go for it, and that's it. Everything else can be solved and even can be used as the competitive advantage.
Yeah, and I would actually add my final sense is that basically also focus. So if you go, then be sure to actually go to the maximum to that market. So it's not like tippy-toeing basically, but go to the, let's say, full strength. And second point is also be patient. So again, we are living the times we are now these days. So with all, let's say, other challenges, I mean, not just business lives, right? Personal lives, people are working from home and so on and so on. Be patient. So be patient, think positive, and hopefully everything will turn out fine.
And just to add from my perspective, I think the things I would suggest that founders think about are, first of all, market opportunity in the UK. UK is a big market, very digitally aware, therefore you will get traction faster than in some of the markets. Secondly, the funding that we talked about. Thirdly, the talent pool, and being able to access all of those skills that you might need, be it data science or AI or whatever. And also just think that it doesn't have to be in London. We heard the good example of Manchester, but other cities across the UK. And final point about founders from the Baltics. I've talked to companies from all over Europe and beyond, and I consistently come back to the statement that founders from the Baltics are some of the most dynamic business people I've ever encountered. So I just wish you a lot of good luck and fortune for the next stages of your business.
Thanks so much, Chris, and it's so great to hear that. And we had no doubt, but it's always amazing to hear it from you, being hands-on with founders from all over the world, I assume. So this is a wrap. It's great to also see positive comments dropping in, and thanks to those who stick with us for a full hour. It is a stretch being in the Zoom fatigued times. To remind. So first of all, at least I know she wrote on Facebook. So Tina Maria is your contact in the Baltics if you want to learn more about UK. I also wanted to use the opportunity to remind about the Baltic Startup Scene report. The link was also shared, and definitely it's available for free. So for anyone who wants to see some insights, and we actually have also stories, including Martin's story about UK market access and a lot of other data points, and actually active VCs investing in the European, from the Europe to Baltics and within the Baltics. But last but not least, if you saw these amazing founders and we have helped them on their journey in the way, and if you feel that you could benefit from a good help from an accelerator, then I will use the opportunity to blast off my advertisement and say that the applications are open for our spring batch in Tallinn. And these guys are also very involved in the alumni community. Thank you so much for that. And this means that you also get an access to a community of really, really awesome founders, not only from the Baltics, but for the other countries. Liudas, Martin, Sigvards, Chris, thanks so much for this evening. And I see that there's a lot of positive comments coming in. You have stayed with us for a full hour. So that's already an achievement. And good luck to anybody starting up. Thanks so much for sharing this time with us.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes,
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you.